Hey everybody, if you're watching this and don't know who I am, let me introduce myself. I'm a non-pig from the Destiny Lorecast, and I've been doing lore content for about 2 years now, maybe 3, whenever the Dark Glow came out. I started with lore posts on Bungie.net, and I progressed all the way to being a host on the podcast that I mentioned earlier. I have a very specific job on that podcast, and it's basically everything. I gather the information, I form the notes, and I also edit the audio for the podcast. And of course, I don't say this to belittle the other hosts because they are incredibly valuable and truly essential to the show. I say it to express the fact that I know what I'm talking about when I say how essential Grimoire cards are to uh, lore content creators, which is the point of this video. Several articles have come out now, as well as word of mouth from Luke Smith, that says Grimoire cards are not going to be coming in Destiny 2. So first let me explain what every lore content creator uses to gather information. It's this lovely little website called ishtar-collective.net, created by Baxter and kept up to date by him, Purple Chimera, and Normal Norman, as well as contributions by many community members. This is the best place to research lore because it's just all there, and it's there. Any word you kind of search, if there's a card with it, it's gonna pull it up. So you search Zavala, you're gonna get everything, every card, every item, every quest that says Zavala in it. The bulk of the website actually comes to him automatically from Bungie's API. So think about sites like Guardian.gg, Destiny Tracker, and the apps like Destiny Item Manager and Ishtar Commander. They all use the API. But Baxter uses it to collect the bulk of the lore. Like I said, the Grimoire cards, the items, the quests. The bulk is known as Grimoire cards, because those are the longer, more explained, expansive story items, like ghosts, or not ghosts, items like guns and quest steps. They have a line, maybe 2, like a sentence. But Grimoire cards, they can be massive, and they can come in series. Like, well, we have, I think, 6 thorns and 6 last words. We have 7 books of sorrow with 10 sections each. Like, they're massive compared. Of course, other things are there as well, like I've been saying, the quests and bounties and items. But the bulk, and that's what's important. Grimoire cards, which are not coming to Destiny 2, are the bulk, the real meat of the lore. So, I also mentioned there's community support there. People go on their forums to contribute things like ghost scans and mission transcripts. Mission transcripts, just to explain, are like the dialogue that we hear in the missions, the things that the characters say to us and interact with us as. And that's something not featured on Ishtar, is character idle dialogue, like the NPCs while you're just in the tower and they're just saying random things. All those things are in-game and supplement the bulk of the lore. However, they are far from easily accessible because they are only accessible in the game, except for the contributed ghost scans and mission transcripts, that is. But until then, it's only accessible in-game. So to hear it, to actually ever see it, you'd have to be playing the game. People are still finding characters saying new things today. And really, we have no way of telling how old or new these lines are, because we only have ourselves to document when they were introduced. Unlike Grimoire cards, which get uploaded and Ishtar stamps them with a date, and they even get updated. Like, that's right, Grimoire cards get tweaked. You can have a card memorized in your head right now, and that isn't correct. It's rare, and the changes are usually minor, but the precedent is set that Bungie is not afraid to update the lore. A good example of this is a full-length card had a name attributed to it, a name that was never featured in the lore before. So a new character was just added to the lore after the fact. So Grimoire cards are not going to be a thing anymore. Instead, lore will be delivered in-game by, and this is a quote, adventures. It's told through the characters in the world. It's told through the campaign, and it's told through the scannables you find throughout the world. So let's look at those one by one. Adventures, which based on what we were told are sort of mini quests given to us by NPCs within Patrol. And they might have API inclusive steps like a normal quest would, but those are very small. Those are just a line, maybe 2, although you'll usually get 7 or 8 steps. That's 7 or 8 lines compared to a short story. Not much. But the adventures will also likely have mission dialogue, and that's not in the API. So we will essentially get half of it easily accessible. Accessible meaning I don't have to be physically at my game to play it. I can be on my computer, and I can be at work on my phone, and I can be reading it, and I can be, it's not ideal, but I've made notes from my phone before using Ishtar and Google Docs. It's just, when you're in a pinch and you need to do it, you got to do it. So moving on. There's the campaign, which, unless they decided to change that for some reason and add mission transcripts into the API, it won't be in the API. And then the word scannables. So right now we have what is called a ghost scan. And ghost scans, as it is now, only existed in Taken King, and none of them were in the API, and all of them were all over the place, and we didn't exactly know where they were. And they were fun because, you think you know something, and then someone comes in and is like, I just found this new ghost scan, and it completely turns the world upside down. And that's awesome. It's also terrifying. It's alright when it's a supplemented aspect, and it's not the main show, it's not the main thing, but it's sort of getting portrayed that's going to be one of the main sources of lore. So it really discredits anything anyone says until we are confident that everything has been scanned in the supposedly massive game that we're getting. Twice the size of our biggest... The European Dead Zone is supposed to be twice the size of their biggest patrol map yet, which I believe is Mars. It's huge, it's just empty. But, so there's also a little tab that's only there sometimes. I don't know exactly what triggered it. I noticed it when I was playing at the D2 premiere, but it didn't do anything. I pressed it, but it didn't do anything. The L2 button at times says show lore instead of show description or description, whatever it was. And honestly, that's our only hope for something to be hinting at it as a place where it's in the game and also the API. But I don't have much hope that it'll be enough, because I can't imagine anyone's gonna get, like, what would trigger a show lore button when all we have are guns, legendary guns. Like, I suppose exotic weapons might have their Grimoire cards just ported into their game, and they're just not called Grimoire cards anymore, and you can hit show lore to see it, and that'd be cool. But exotic weapons their cards were usually pretty small. I'm talking like the Books of Sorrow length, I'm talking Thorn and Last Word, and great things like that. And I can't really imagine getting the quality of those cards in the game at the same quality. So you're sort of sacrificing 2 things. You're sacrificing the accessibility for the lore content creators, and you're also sacrificing the quality of the lore that they are actually putting out, because they're going to try to streamline it and make it simple and easy to eat, or easy to consume. Not easy to eat, that sounds weird. It's just... I'm trying to remain hopeful. I really am. But it's worrying. The more we hear about it, the more I'm worried about. that it's going to bomb, and that's sort of why everyone is speaking about this right now, because now is the time to speak up. You know, if something is concerning you, like I've tweeted at Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy that I do not like the cluster perks. The 4 clusters, those are your perks. You do not get to pick and choose. You don't get to turn one on and one off. It's all or nothing for the 4, and I don't like that. And I hope they change it. And I hope enough people speak out against that it gets changed, because I'm not a fan of that system at all. Uh, it's too streamlined. It's too casual. It does not allow for my individuality to be demonstrated, for me to find my build, to me to be the gunslinger I want to be. It is gunslinger A or gunslinger B, and pick your grenades. And that's very, very boring to me. But so, I've spoken at length about the API, but not so much why it's important. Every other video you've watched, assuming you've watched Bifes and Mylons and also Beards, give you the perspective of a YouTube content creator. One actually gives you a full-time, one a part-time, and one would give you, I believe he's just doing it as a hobby or a passion project. But all of which are members of the lore community that have my respect. And none of them are a lore podcaster, which is a very different thing. YouTube lore is like a firework. It's bright and pretty and doesn't last too long, while podcast lore is like a campfire. It's not bright or pretty, but it's warmer and can be more inviting to listen to. It's almost as if you're sitting down with the cast and having a conversation, not so much just catching a story in a bar, you know. And of course, our podcast lasts longer. So here's a look into my weekly work for Destiny Lorecast. I ask everyone what they want to talk about, and usually I don't get a response, so I ask again. And still no response. They just don't respect me. But hey, that's not why we're here, right? So I take their no responses and just run with whatever I want to do. So let's take a very small topic. Looking through our past notes, I found probably one of the smallest topics, a very, very specific episode on the Paladins of the Reef. There's 9, I think it was, 9 or 7, I forget it. There's one group of 9 and one group of 7, but either way. So very, very small snippets of characters, like very few cards on them, very, very few things about them in general. They are probably one of the most specific topics we've done on the show. And the notes only came out to be 6 pages long, and that's in size 11 font, single spaced, which is almost never it's almost always half. Like, we almost always have 11 to 12 pages, and on some notes we've had like 30 pages, and it's hard to do. Like, you know, we don't want to give you a 2-hour podcast. No one wants to listen to a 2-hour podcast. It's so fucking excessive. But either way, so I've got my topic, and now I've got the magical world of API sourced Grimoire, or of API sourced Grimoire. I just go to Ishtar and search for keywords such as Paladin and Reef, and as I learn bit by bit, from it, I refine the search. So in this case, I would search their names just in case, Paladin didn't get them to pop up. I would look up Aberzir or Rife, Imogen Rife. I would search for Imogen. I would search for Rife. I would search for them together, and things like that. I would be very thorough, because that's what I have access to with the API. And I would see where they had events, like they were on Cybele and Bamberga, and I would look up those words, and I would look at it from every possible angle, because it's all there at my fingertips. It's not hidden in the world somewhere, hidden in a cave or in a scan or on a mission, and I'd have to play the game and slow crawl every aspect, every corner of the game for every fucking episode. And I love Destiny, I really do, but I don't have that time. No one has that time. Removing the API lore, like the lore in the API, is such a negative thing, and it should really speak out that every don't want to say every, because I know some aren't making videos, but they pretty much all agree, you know, like they're just not making videos, they're just like quietly supporting from the background, um, are saying, like, speaking out, like, no, 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 don't fucking do that. Don't fucking do that. But you know, Bungie's gonna do what they're gonna do. We just have to hope that that we can change it. Um, so even with the magical world of API sourced Grimoire, this takes hours of searching. Usually I'll be 6-7 hours on a average topic. I've gone for longer. It's taken me a couple days to be satisfied that I've covered the topic and gotten everything I've wanted. And that's just gathering the information. Of course, once the information is gathered, it's very quick. It's only like an hour, hour and a half to organize it. That's the simple part. It's the gathering that even now, in the easiest form it can be, is difficult. So now let's move into a world without API. Now the community would band together in this dark time. I'm confident in that. They would. That we would slow crawl and transcribe everything, but what would that actually cause? There would be like a good week or two, or maybe even more, until we were all confident that we had covered it, that we had covered every aspect of the game, every corner was scanned and looked through and found, and everything was written correctly, nothing was misspelled, everything was capitalized where it needed to be capitalized, because it is absurd how necessary that is. And then what? We can finally start actually devouring the lore and actually start like dissecting what means what and what does this imply and what does that imply. That's it shouldn't be the community's responsibility to gather everything. Not when we've already had it for 3 years. This whole thing feels like Bungie was taking the reviews at Vanilla Destiny and made changes based on that. Not what people like evolved from. You know, when Vanilla Destiny launched and everyone said the Grimoire is the worst thing ever and everything blah 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 blah. You know, that was really fast and over really fast. And then people started coming out and looking at the Grimoire and realizing how great it is and making lore content and really carrying the game through some of the largest routes. You know, it's almost like lore and PvP. That's what you had keeping this game alive. And PvP is making some amazing changes to sort of almost to say thank you for what you're doing, and lore is getting slapped in the face. Maybe. Maybe we're all wrong, and maybe Bungie just sort of said things in that stupid, vague way because they're afraid to give a full answer. And I'm sorry, but if you're not going to give a full answer, you shouldn't give an answer at all, because this is what you're going to get every fucking time. I'm going really off script here, and I don't really know what to say. So when I first started saying this, I just want to cover this. When I first started saying this, and I'm not surprised, people have like reacted with the put lore in the game. Then Bungie puts lore in the game. I can't believe like you put lore in the game. Like, we're mad. I never asked for it, and in fact, I have been against it forever. I've always said it's stupid to ask for lore in the game, to ask for the Grimoire in the game, that it was wasted resources, that no one would want to sit down in front of their game and instead of go and play with their friends, instead of going on the awesome, hopefully awesome, that we're going to be getting patrols or fun, balanced PvP or the immersive missions and all that good shit, they're going to sit there and read. No. No one, in my opinion, no one wants to do that, because I sure as shit don't want to do that. I want to look at it on my phone when I'm at work and don't want to be at work, and I want to be anywhere else, and I want to get lost in the Destiny universe. So I said what I want. I want story. I want better story. Vanilla Campaign had a story. It was fucking shit, but it had a story. It was awful. It made no sense. It was non-linear. It just tossed you around to try to cover as many bases as they can. They just had to check off that you faced this enemy and move on. That's all they cared about, ultimately. But the story was about the Exo-Stranger leading us to the Black Garden for some reason they didn't explain, and then we destroyed the Black Heart for some reason they didn't really explain, and it did something but they didn't really explain. That's bad story. The lore didn't explain it either. The Grimoire didn't really explain it either. It helped, and I will admit, there are actually quite a few cards that should be cutscenes, but quite a few cards does not mean, oh, we'll make every card in the game, fuck the Grimoire, put it in the game. Cards like the Dark Below, Might, Fist, Eyes, Hand, Will of Crota, those all should be cutscenes. It's stupid that they aren't. I will not lie. They're not even written well. They are written like a screenplay, like for someone to read their line. They're not written like an actual story. I'm getting a little bit mad. I just hope that enough people are speaking out. I just hope that enough people are watching these videos and understanding where we're coming from. We're not just coming out and saying, "Oh, we don't like it. Like, don't fucking do this." We're concerned. Like, some people make their livelihood on this, and to say, "Hey, you're gonna have to go a month without making actual new content because you're gonna have to work for a month. You're gonna have to work for a month just to get to the point where you can make new content, and then in another couple months, you're gonna have to do it again. Have fun." You know, that's essentially what it's feeling like, and that's why we're speaking out. It's early enough in the development that something might be able to change, and yeah, that's all I got.